morning, Stan Alhadeff, Business CFO Beyond the Balance Sheet. Welcome to our inaugural chat room, and today I'm pleasantly happy to introduce Charlotte Merritt from Ops, who deals with operations, people, processes, solutions, with a specific vertical of being legal in the legal world. So good morning, Charlotte, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for the great introduction.
If only I did justice to you, I would be happy. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Charlotte, how you got here.
How did I get here? I think operations-minded people tend to come from chaos, and we spend our childhood trying to organize chaos. And when that doesn't work out, we organize other people's businesses, right? So it's not just organizing a human's brain, it's organizing their business so that they can grow, so they can find things, so they know exactly where the financials are kept. They know exactly, think of like an online, everyone uses an online file cabinet. And ops, I want to make sure that those files are in the right order, and they have the right things in them. So I got here just from being raised in a chaotic home, and I do not have one of those in my life now.
So ops is a very wide, I want to call it a very wide area, right? Do you filter
Mm-hmm.
down and kind of tackle one thing, or do you tackle it all?
You have to go wide with operations because, yes, initially I'm going to come in and I'm going to map all of the kind of business frameworks. I'm going to say, here's what you do, here's how you do it, here's how you hand things off. You do your job, you give it to the next person in line, you give it to the next person in line, and you kind of track those approvals. So that's just operations. What happens though is that I want to know where your clients come from because what is that intake process like? So now I'm dabbling in marketing. I'm not taking marketing spot, but I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the marketing process. Okay, marketing worked out. You have a sales qualified lead. Now I'm looking at your sales process. What does that look like? Because at the end of the day, operations is about the process and the people that do them. So once I look at your sales process, it's just client life cycle. Okay, who's doing the work? It's called a production team. Who's doing the work and how are they doing it? How do they get the work assigned? How do they give updates? And where are the bottlenecks to moving the work through that client life cycle? So now that's just, again, hard, heavy operations. And as things move up the line, you end up also looking a little bit at the financials. Okay, the money came in. What'd you do with it? Where'd it go? Did it go to my Ulta account? Is it an evergreen retainer? Are you invoicing people? And I want to make sure that those operations are clean and repeatable so that when they get to you as the CFO, you are not scrambling and looking at shoe boxes full of receipts. So I want to make sure that the entire team has the right process so that you get handed good data.
So do you, if I'm hearing correctly, right, you'll go in, you'll help with processes, and let's just take HR. Oh, you then obviously put a process in for HR. Do you then bring in someone HR, or do you actually help them in the HR department?
So I am not SHRM certified, SHRM being the Society of HR Professionals. I would say I'm dangerous enough to know when to bring someone in. So I've got a few HR partners, either as a company like a PEO or just independent HR contractors that I really like because I don't have a master's in HR, I'm not SHRM certified. So I'm dangerous enough to say, that's wrong. You're out of compliance. And I can cite statutes and laws for multiple states, but I don't want the responsibility of doing that. So if I find a company that's wildly out of compliance, for example, I had one, let's sanitize the example as best we can, and everyone had a different amount of time off. This person had 5 days a year, this person had 10 days a year, this person had 12 days a year, and I couldn't find any consistent reason. So when I finally, they had a COO, and I was like, why? How did that happen? They said, oh, these people asked for it in their interview. And I'm like, great, amazing, you're out of compliance. And you can either do one policy that rounds everyone up to the highest number, or you can bring in an HR person and have them do it. So yes, sometimes I have to bring in HR. And I would say I'm very lucky to have a network. So when I, for example, take a peek at that marketing, I just want to know the processes and document them and know what happens when, how do you get leads in the door? I don't want to fix that process. So I also will bring in a marketing specialist. Law firms don't tend to have big sales teams. Usually it's the owner and one other person. So I don't tend to bring in sales professionals. I am sales trained, so I can fix a lot of that process myself. But if I had a larger client with a full sales team, absolutely, I'm bringing in a sales professional. I can say it's broken, fix it, and then I'll document it and fit those puzzle pieces together with all the other departments. But no, I'm very aware of my lane. I will fix the production side of things, but sometimes an expert is needed.
But what I take away from that is that the most important thing is that you recognize the shortcoming and you fix it.
Right. And I'm not just going to say, oops, that's not my department. I'm going to be side by side with any other consultant I bring in because one, it teaches me something I learn, I benefit. And two, I'm the one who has to document the how, the why, the where. So I'm very much a roll my sleeves up, get into the work because owners are busy. Owners of law firms, managing partners of law firms, your job is to bring in the cases or the clients. So I can't just hand them a list. I'm not like a consultant. Oh, here's your to-do list. Nobody wants homework. Nobody wants homework. So I give them the homework and say, this is what I'm going to do. And then I take it back and I do it, sometimes alongside somebody else.
So you said something, and I just want to make sure that I have the correct perception. You said typically attorneys have one person plus an employee or your companies. Who do you work? What size companies do you work with?
Well, I meant on the sales team. So they might have one or two people on the sales team. My clients at the smallest are going to be 5 total employees, but it's going to go up from there. I'm not looking at these 100-person firms or 200-person mega firms. I really want to stay in the small firm, small business realm, which those are where you don't have a big sales team. It's just an owner and one other person. So usually I'm looking at, in a dream world, 3, 4 associate attorneys, maybe 3 associate and 1 senior associate, owner who's an attorney and a founder, and
So
then
the
below
one
those
the
5,
mom and pop.
mom and pop.
Sorry
They
to
have their
interrupt, but the
name on
mom
the
and pop
firm.
obviously is too small because there's no infrastructure.
Yeah, you have to have structure and process, and 2 people can't be wearing the same, like every hat. I need multiple hats.
So then I would imagine, if you're talking 5 people, right? 5 partners, 5 associates, you know, it's all about scaling, right? It's about making it work so you can scale.
Because each of those associates is going to have like a shared paralegal. So with 5 people, you really have 8 to 10 because they have a shared paralegal or legal assistant or just a virtual assistant. And what I see happen is you have that core team, they've been with the owner a long time, they all know how to do everything because that's that scrappy bootstrap startup mentality, even in law firms. You can't scale like that. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've gone into firms and associate attorneys are like, oh, well, I write the blogs. Oh, well, I do the social media. Oh, well, I can do this. I can do that. I can do that. Yes, you're very smart. I'm proud of you. You can do everything. Amazing. And you're more profitable if you don't. So if I want to see a law firm scale, educating these associate attorneys and kind of pandering to them, like, yes, you can do it all. You're amazing. You're brilliant. And your paralegal can do a lot of that work and doesn't cost the firm money. Because if you do paralegal work, legal assistant work, VA work, marketing work, every minute you spend on that, every 6 minutes you spend on that, you're costing the firm money. So for a company to scale, a law firm to scale, you have to gently remind billable by the hour employees not to do things that are billable by the hour and not billable by their rate. Oh, I can do this. Yes, you make $3.25 an hour. That person makes $1.95. Let them do it. Because once you take those such easy, super quick tasks off of associates, and you pass it down the line to the appropriate person, that's when you can bring on another associate. Because when you bring on an associate and they're being trained by someone who does it all, the next associate learns the same bad habits. So you have to clean up the habits, get everyone focused on just what they're supposed to be doing, which for associate attorneys is the billable work. And then you can grow, because then you can have 5 associates, and you know that those 5 associates equal 3 paralegals. You hire them, you train them. Once I've written the how-to manual and the SOPs, done some training videos, it's so easy just to record training videos in this day and age. Onboarding becomes easier. So everything I'm doing is pulling tasks away from associates and the owner so they can just be profitable. That's it, Stan. I want to help them make the money that you get to organize. Like I said, it's all about passing the good
So
data
let me
up to
ask
you.
you, so I would imagine that people typically who don't really have processes, right? And you'd be amazed that, I simply can tell you how many don't, because I see it all every day in my life, right? So I'm sure it's the same as you. But how do you, outside the billable rate, which is an easy KPI, right? We know the billable rate. How do you measure, or how do you kind of tell them this is what you need to kind of downstream versus not? I mean, is part of the KPI process, is that part of your process to kind of ultimately implement once they've finished? I would imagine it'd be one of the last tasks because you have to get organized upstream or downstream before you can kind of have the look at the big picture. But is that kind of something that you would implement?
KPIs are definitely the last step for me because I'm going to go into the organization. I'm going to observe. I'm going to document. I'm going to find the efficiencies. I'm going to shuffle. And then once everyone's had a few weeks or months in that new rotation, yeah, I want KPIs. Okay, now that you have to hit, just as a really general example, an associate attorney should hit about 1,500 billable hours a year. 1,500, 1,200 to 1,800. We'll split the difference. That's an easy KPI. Again, that's billables. But how about those people that aren't billable? So your legal assistant or your virtual assistant, what KPIs are they hitting? Okay, well, let's invoices went out on time 90% of the time or 95% of the time. Invoices went out without mistakes 95% of the time. Intake, because usually legal assistant, intake happened and you gathered all the information the attorney needs. So building those KPIs is at the very end because if you try to throw KPIs at the beginning, I'm redoing their job descriptions. I'm redoing their days. They don't also need to be thinking about KPIs because KPIs have to be reachable. I can say you have to hit 2,000 billable hours. That doesn't help them. That doesn't allow for their days, their schedules. So yeah, I love KPIs, but they're definitely at the end. I usually know at the beginning what I'm going to do because I've been doing this long enough and it's not reinventing the wheel. But yeah, I don't introduce KPIs until I absolutely know the entire team is comfortable with their new normal.
So what would you say your key differentiators are to the other folks that do similar stuff to you?
So I would say the other independent operations people in the market here, I know them, I respect them. I had lunch with one of them last Friday, which is, internal therapy session, COO to COO. So I would say between the other independents, the difference is I'm looking for the smallest law firms. I'm looking for the 5, 6, 7 person, and most people want the larger ones because there's more money, there's more budget. So I'm definitely taking the harder path. But outside of those one or two independent individuals that do what I do, the key difference is every job is unique. Every client is unique. Um, Probably 15 years ago, I had a spreadsheet literally called Snowflakes and Unicorns about my attorneys because they're each a little bit different. And that's what makes them special. So, what makes me different? I'm going to go in with that mentality. Yes, you are my third family law firm client. What makes you different, and how am I going to handle your differences as I consult? Because if I'm just going around, there's an organization, there's two that do nothing but mentor attorneys, and it's one platform they hand to everyone. Stan, you and I don't wear the same size shoe. You know what I mean? Like we're different. Everyone should get a different, unique package from me. So that being said, there is no package. I don't have templates. Everyone gets to be different. And unlike a traditional consultant, I'm not leaving you with a to-do list. I'm copying you on my Charlotte to-do list. But very, very much so, I think the big key difference is while I bring years of experience and a lot of efficiency because I've done this, every client is different. I still spend those 2 weeks observing and taking notes and finding out what makes them special. Because what I don't want to do is homogenize it to everyone being the same. Every firm is different, has a different culture, a different way of doing things, and I want to maintain as much of that special sauce as possible.
Let me ask you a question. I've noticed since, I hate to keep going back to COVID, but that seems to be the turning point of the US, right? Of the world, maybe. But there seems to be a lot more, and certainly also with the mass layoffs that's going on in the economy, there seems to be a lot more people trying to fill this. I'm going to call it a fractional role. So there's a lot more noise, and one has to differentiate. And I feel, and I'd love to hear your opinion, that there are a lot of people out there that are doing injustice to clients and the industry. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna get in trouble with this one. I think a lot of them are joining fractional firms who give them a lot of tools, and it just that's my soapbox pet peeve. Because if you're filling out forms that someone else provided you of how to consult, whether you're a fractional CEO, CFO, COO, CTO, CIO, all these, you're right, more fractionals have entered the space. If you're not, you are trying to get me in trouble. I really appreciate the independents who are doing it.
Let me interject. I'll tell you what, it's a pet peeve of mine also, right? And this week I wrote a blog, and I don't know when it's getting published, but I wrote a blog this week basically on the subject because there's a lot of noise in my industry, right? They're bookkeepers selling themselves as CFOs, and they burn clients. The clients now are too scared to engage because they've already
Yes.
been burnt once, right? And there's also big companies that, when I say big companies, I'm not talking about the big consulting firms. I'm talking about firms that are franchises and firms that
Mm-hmm.
are locally combined, with 10 partners or 20 people. I can show you adverts after adverts. And I'm talking about the CFO space. I just want to know if it happens in your world also. Where I see adverts and people calling me, I got a job for you. It's a white label. Okay, tell me about it. $25 an hour. And I can say, hell no, I'm not working for $25 an hour. But or it's $100 an hour. But they're going to mark you up to $400 an hour, and the rest is theirs. So the question, I did a lot of research, right? So in my mind, it is my key differentiator, for example, is you're paying for me, you're not paying for overhead. So
This is my overhead. Look that this is me. Pay for this. But no, I think a regret that I have, which I try not to have regrets, but I came up with this company during COVID that I was going to do this, that I was ready, and I waited and I any advice I would give someone else, I didn't take for myself. And so by the time I was like, okay, all the stars have aligned. My kid is in high school and everything's where I wanted it to be. And you're right, I entered the market. And when I started this plan, it was just me. There were no other fractional COOs I'd heard of. And then I waited 3, 4 years and I entered the market and I'm like, oh, look at all my new friends. We're all coming out at the same time. And I think that's wonderful because it saves small companies money because it's not always economical to bring on a full-time person. There also might not be enough work, but yes, it's definitely a lot more crowded than I thought it would be. And I'm not a person to just jump. I like to have all the research, all the information, and my spreadsheets make me very happy. And I think I just stayed in my spreadsheets too long, and I wish I'd come out earlier because there's a lot of noise.
there is a lot of noise.
But yeah, the CFO thing, I'll be honest, like as of right now, COOs we're still kind of unique. CFOs, the bookkeeper. Oh, I'm a bookkeeper. Oh, great, good. So for me, bookkeepers, day to day, day to day money comes in. Where do I put it? And then like CPAs look backwards. What did you do? And CFOs are like, let me look backwards, look at today, and then see how we're going to move forward. And I hear people say, oh yeah, I've got a bookkeeping firm, and I do the forecasting, and I'm like, oh, I'm building out swim lanes for a company, and I don't. I don't think that's your lane. You know what I mean? Like you're not.
Yeah, the problem is people don't do validation. They don't do any, they don't do any validation. It's all about the noise. So, quick question, another one for you. What in, what are you willing to unpack really and feel comfortable in? Is a, that was like a fiscal challenge or a turning point in one of your clients that you really, your like proud moment where you really brought value and the client is appreciative.
So when I look at systems, I'm looking at vendors and looking at someone's time. So I think one of a prouder moment I had. Sometimes I'm brought in just to write SOPs. That's the entry level. But this one client really wanted, to see change. And looking at the vendors, a lot of vendor meetings every week. There was a lot of talking at this owner. There was a lot of hours spent talking to two different marketing vendors. And maybe I'm just a petulant child. But why? But why? But why do you do this? That's 8 hours of you spent 8 hours with this person filming videos, but why? Why? Videos aren't even that like amazing. Why? You're spending 3 hours rewriting all their scripts because you can tell they're chat GPT. Why? And the ultimate result was that vendor became just photo shoots for branding, which was great. That's efficient use of time once a year. And this law firm owner uses a law clerk who they're free, they're getting school credit to research the legal matters for scripts. So they're getting the research skills. And this owner got hours of their life back. And they got better videos, which makes for better marketing, which makes for better SEO, which is a different conversation with a different specialist. But in doing that, like taking that lift off of, oh, I have to review these scripts, this awful company, chat GPT'd over to me, and I have to spend a whole day filming these videos, that's draining. To take that lift off, and if you think that particular owner bills upwards of 600 an hour, to give 8 hours back to someone in a month, to give 10 hours back to someone in a month, no, they probably aren't going to go grind out legal work. They're going to go find that next big client. So that I think was just a huge moment. And that particular client took a 2-week vacation at the end of our first year. And that to me, like choirs, right? Violins are playing, things are happening, there's fireworks. You walked away for 2 weeks. You felt comfortable that your team knew what to do, your team was on the right track, everything was going to run just fine without you. Like it just felt good.
So, I mean, if I think what, a good way to describe it, and it maybe leads to the next question, you bring clarity to being busy and being profitable.
I can be very busy. That doesn't mean I'm going anywhere. Treadmills are very busy. Hamster wheels are very busy. But you don't want that in business. You want every minute of your time, whether you're an attorney, whether you're in manufacturing, whether you're an accountant, you want that time to drive revenue. There's a sales book that's, I forget the author's name. Oh, I didn't think about that. But the book is called Everybody's in Sales, right? And I take that book and I love it. I agree with it. But also, everybody's in revenue. Every single member of your team can drive revenue for your company, for the CFO to organize and project for future spending and fun. But if everyone has that mentality of my time has value, I bring value to the company, I drive revenue. I'm a virtual assistant overseas, but I drive value for the company. If you have that mindset and you empower people with that, it allows scaling, it allows revenue, it allows growth. And then, I only work with great people. Those great people aren't just going to sit there and be like, ooh, revenue, put it in my pocket. They're going to be like, ooh, revenue, a lot for me and some for you because you helped me build it. So everybody, all ships rise.
So I'm sure part of the process is you also, what in the accounting world we call it soft costs, right? People ignore soft costs. It's stuff that's kind of hidden costs. They're there. So I'm sure a lot of that comes to light also.
There's lots of hidden costs of doing business, but I defer to you. You're the CFO. You look at those, I think of it deeper than I do. I look at the time waste. I look at the hidden cost of wasted time, of inefficient use of time. But I think you're the expert for the actual hidden costs because you're the one looking at the P&L and the AR and all the other acronyms around financials.
But I mean, you certainly do. The people, when I say hidden cost in your world, it's like people don't recognize the fact that they shut something downstream. Yes, they might lose $200 in revenue, from the billable rate, but they can then go bill another $500 or $600 because they've got that additional free hour.
So yes, we definitely have those conversations. I will say, handing things downstream, I'd like to point out, does not take away the responsibility. Like, so if I'm the senior, if I'm the lead attorney on a case, my job is to get this case beginning to end. And I take a task and I pass it to a junior associate, a paralegal, and a legal assistant. I'm still responsible for all that work. So there's also the balance of like, yeah, pass it down to the highest qualified, lowest billed person. But also you're still responsible for that work. You can't be a bottleneck. So there's definitely some balancing. There's definitely some standing on one foot with your eyes closed to make sure that the work gets done, but you don't micromanage, but you don't do it yourself, but you don't micromanage second time. There's a lot of trust. Everyone's remote. I would love to have everyone do like trust falls with their company. Like, all right, you have to trust this person to catch you. Great, you trust them. Now let them do legal research.
Funny. So, who are your ideal clients? People you can. I know you said it's smaller clients, but in terms of introduction, so people can introduce you. Who are the greatest referral? If you want to call it referral partners.
So really 5 employees is a bit of a threshold because at 5 things get sticky, they need a process because that fifth person is that tipping point of, oh, we haven't known you for the past 4 years. That's that new person. So you really need process in place, 5, 6 employees. So that's ideal. I love law firms. I've worked with non-law firms, but law firms to me, through various career paths I've taken, I tend to always work with attorneys. I get it. I'm comfortable with it. Maybe I should have been one in a past life because I like researching. Like, I'll do the legal research. If we just spout off all the ways you're out of compliance, great. Here's the 3 laws. But that is my ideal client. Really, once I hit 20, 30 associates, which makes them like a 50, 60 person firm, at that point, I might not be doing major changes inside the firm. I might be just partnering with their firm administrator or with their COO because they want to do a tech change. They're like, hey, you know what? Clio no longer supports LawPay or 8am or whatever they're calling themselves this week. So we don't like Clio anymore and we want to move to Smokeball or Cosmolights or Carrot or my case or whatever else. I can't do this change myself. It's too much. So then, for the bigger firms, I'm usually just brought in for a project.
But
But yeah,
who would
small firms are
introduce
my
you?
ideal. And US based, and not that I'm opposed to somebody wants to fly me to Europe for 6 weeks, I'm all in. But US based just because I have East Coast clients and West Coast clients. And I have a teenager back there somewhere in a picture. And that's the balance I can handle, right? Like kids out of the house by 7:15, kid comes back in the house around 7:15. Those are my workable hours, and Europe would mess with that unless someone wants to fly me over, in which case, let's go.
Who would introduce? Who are your key
The
leads
referral
in terms of
partners.
referral partners?
So fractional HR leaders are fantastic because they're not going to get around to writing all the SOPs and standard operating procedures for the entire network. They might throw out an org chart and some job descriptions, and they might want to do the rest of the work, but HR is a living, nasty, gnarling beast, so they're too busy doing other things. So fractional HR leaders, fractional CFOs are great because you see it in the numbers if they're disorganized downstream. Like you are the upstream to me. So if things come to you messy in shoeboxes, there's some process missing below. So fractional CFOs are phenomenal. And frankly, other COOs that are doing work with bigger clients have been great because they only have so much bandwidth. And I'm like, hey, I can come in and do a chunk of this project.
Well, in the closing statements, is there anything else you'd like to add? Share with the viewers, listeners?
No, not a thing. I'm born and raised in Atlanta, truly in Atlanta. I think that gives me a unique perspective on the world. There's something about being raised in the New York of the South that makes me an interesting hodgepodge of New Yorker mindset with Southern sensibilities. So people either like me or they don't.
There we go. It's my motto. Take me as I come. Well, Charlotte, it's been a pleasure having a little conversation with you this morning. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. That's a wrap, folks. Dan Alhadeff, Business CFO, beyond the balance sheet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlotte.